All right, everybody, we are back with another episode of the Q&A. So with that said, on to the first question of the day. Would an isolation day be a dumb idea as an intermediate? So everything that you do comes with a cost. And in general, when you give something its own day, you're taking away a very large amount of neural drive that could have been recovered on that day. You're adding stresses to the joints that would have been a pure recovery day. So you have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? It should be like a really significant decision. I would only add a day for any exercise, any muscle group, if you're unable to progress it within the context of your current split. So if you can no longer progress arms and side delts and rear delts at the end of your sessions or even at the beginning, then maybe consider a full day. Am I missing anything by not doing unilateral leg work? I hate split squats. So I think you're missing something from training the glutes. Like you're just not going to be able to optimally train the glutes without some unilateral work because you won't be able to get as big of a stretch or any stretch at all. However, for quads, I don't think you're missing anything. Now, that said, split squats are hardly the only unilateral choice. You can do unilateral leg press, unilateral leg extension, and doing some unilateral work will ensure that you nip any imbalances in the bud. Differences and similarities between the Flite and Strive/Prime pieces. So I've only ever seen the Flite shoulder press and the Flite chest press, I don't even know how you say it, here at Bayshore. If I had access to like the Prime incline, I would be using the Prime incline and not the chest press. However, the shoulder press is pretty cool because it converges and the seat is long enough that you can scoot your butt really far forward and turn it into a true high incline. So then you have a converging high incline that has a very even strength curve. It is technically lengthen bias, but it's such a minor lengthen bias that it's more just an even strength curve with a good little drop at the short. On the other hand, of course, any Prime or Strive pieces, you can adjust to the exact strength curve that you want. And so when you get one that's converging, it's a superior piece of equipment. But their overhead press does not converge and the seat isn't very long, so you can't scoot forward to turn it into a high incline. That's why I use the Flite for the high incline. With your full body split, will you be doing rotations? I am doing rotations for lower body, and the main reason for that is because I can't deadlift every 48 hours and recover. I honestly, even trying to deadlift every 4 days is going to be a stretch for me, even with just one set. So my lower body rotation at the moment is leg curls plus hacks, and then on my other lower body day, I do machine RDLs and leg press. And as I just put in the most recent post that I did, I'm going to be doing a rotation for upper body starting next workout as well. One of the issues that I ran into in my session today was that I had like kind of like a twinge in my right pec, and it's not actually my pec, it's the connective tissue right next to where the tendon inserts. And that's where all of my pec injuries have been. So it's like not the muscle itself that has trouble recovering, but it's the soft tissues. And your soft tissues and joints will be the failure point in a low volume, high frequency program. So to avoid that getting any worse, I'm going to rotate between two different push sessions. My back stuff will stay the same every session. And I'll be doing one session with a really heavy shoulder emphasis, and then the next session will be a really heavy chest emphasis. And for the details on that, I recommend just going and reading my most recent post about my second full body workout. For full body, will you be doing one set per exercise or potentially more? So I'm going to start with one set per exercise. However, I do think there is scope to add more volume to certain movements, especially isolations like laterals, calves, curls, and abs, stuff that basically doesn't impact any other lift. But how I can tell with that is I'm looking for a situation where my performance, where I add like 1 pound and I lose 1 rep. If I go in and I add a little bit of weight, like a pound, 2 pounds, and I lose 2 or 3 reps, that is always under recovery. But when I go in, add a little bit of weight, and I lose 1 rep, and my performance is basically the same in both sessions, that's usually under stimulus, and that's where adding another set can be beneficial. In a powerlifting program that squats and deadlifts both twice a week, does it make sense to have deadlift ahead of squat in one of those sessions? It can. So for example, like say you're on a 5-3-1 setup, and one of the setups that I like from that program is like one day you do competition squat and you're doing a deadlift assistance exercise, like maybe stiff legs or RDLs. And on the other day you do your competition deadlift, but with the squat assistance exercise, like, I don't know, front squats. Powerlifters love front squats, safety bar squats, high bar squats, or something like that. In general, closer to a meet, I would rather see 3 times per week lower body frequency unless the lifter is very big and very strong, and then just have all 3 on their own day. So like Monday comp squat, Wednesday comp deadlift, Friday double pause squat or something of that nature. I am 15 and barely grew 2 inches from turning 14. What could have possibly caused this? So yes, it's possible that like poor nutrition or poor sleep led to you not growing as much as you'd hoped. But the number one answer for the reason why you didn't grow as much as you wanted is genetics, man. You either just aren't going to grow as tall as you hoped, and that would be just so sad, wouldn't it? But speaking from experience, man, I had so many friends in high school, male friends, obviously, who grew like 4 to 6 inches in a year. There might have even been some girls that did that too, but I just don't remember that. Like, so you're only 15, you got plenty of time to keep growing. For example, my grandpa, I believe, graduated high school at like 4'11". He finished at like 5'6" by the time he was 25. I graduated high school at 5'5". I didn't stop growing until I was 25, and I ended up at 5'7". There's plenty of people that go from like 5'8" to 6'2" from 17 to 18. So you're definitely not done growing at 15 either way. I wouldn't be stressed about not growing as much as you'd hoped. But again, there is the possibility that you're just not going to be that tall. On safety bar squats, do you actively push up or pull down on the handles? Or maybe neither? Personally, for me, neither. I find it funny that I've been asked this safety bar handle question like 5 times. It just makes me think that there's like an influencer out there who's making this like a huge deal, and it's really not. The number one thing that's going to influence like your squat mechanics is what's happening with your hips and your knees. So if you want the safety bar squat to be really quad biased, drive your knees forward and cue hips forward coming out of the hole. Because as soon as your hips shoot back, you're taking load off of the quads and shifting it onto the hips. What you do with the handles is completely secondary to that. So knees forward on the way down and then hips forward out of the hole to prevent your butt swinging back and putting load on the hips. Are compound exercises enough for beginners? There's 2 huge problems with this question, and I'm going to tell you the first problem. One is there's no acceptable definition of beginner. Do you mean someone with 10 weeks of training or 10 months? They're completely different things. Second, good enough for what? Good enough to make any gains at all? Or good enough for optimal gains? Your only real concern if you're a beginner with 6 months or less of training is learning the technique on the core movements. Squat patterns, hinge patterns, pressing patterns, rowing patterns, pull down patterns. All that you should care about is technique. Now, once you're more like in that 6 months to 18 months of training territory, if you want optimal gains in things like your calves and your biceps and your side delts and your abs, you're going to have to do at least 1 or 2 or 3 sets of those movements directly each week to get those muscles to grow optimally. You are not going to get the best bicep gains possible from doing chin-ups. How significant are the health benefits of cardio for natty lifters? Man, I never thought I was going to be a grumpy old man who hated people for completely illegitimate reasons, but here we are, and here I am, and I hate the word natty, and I hate people that use it. Honestly, man, the vast majority of people that have cancer, that have heart disease, that have prediabetes, that have high blood pressure, that are fat, are natty. They're natural. They don't use steroids. They're natties. Just because you're natural and you lift weights 3 or 4 times a week does not make you automatically healthy in every respect. Now, if you have a very active lifestyle, like somewhere in the region of like north of 15,000 steps per day, adding additional cardio might not yield a ton of benefits. If you're someone who's relatively sedentary, like you get 4,000 to 8,000 steps a day, adding cardio will have immense health benefits. Okay, the American Heart Association recommends 150 minutes of moderate cardio a week. Now, lifting can get you most of those 150 minutes, but for most people, even in terms of your work capacity and your training results, it would behoove you to add 20 to 30 minutes of low-intensity cardio 2 or 3 times per week for maximum health benefits. Because keep in mind, the American Heart Association is making these recommendations to help people reduce all-cause mortality. They're not like trying to care about your gains. So doing some cardio to be maximally healthy is a good idea, even for natties. Is it okay to stop at 90 degrees when doing dips, or do I have to go further? Well, if you want partial development, then do partial range of motion. You should always be doing a full range of motion. Muscles grow the best when they're stretched under load, and the stretch is the most hypertrophic part of the range of motion. Now, if you have some reason that you can't go any lower, be like pain or an injury, that's completely legitimate. Only go as low as you can go without pain, and then once the injury heals, you can work your range of motion across a longer amplitude over time once the pain is not there anymore. All right, everybody, that's the end of the video. So you know what that means. It lately has meant no dog pictures and physique updates instead. But the other part stays the same. If you like the video, comments and questions below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day.